Hi, my name is Jacob, and welcome to another Raw Uncut section on the Abrasive Conversations platform. So today I want to speak about xenophobia in South Africa. And for me, I think there is not a lot of people, especially commentators, who are speaking or trying to deal with a specific issue. I think the issue of xenophobia are drowned out by other types of news reports. And when it's reported that there is not really any journalistic or deep type of analytic work that is taking place. So I have two questions today that I hope will help the media, but also people to think a little bit deeper and more closely about the issue of xenophobia in South Africa. And I think it's important because if we do not deal with this issue of xenophobia in South Africa, that we later on going to have problems with our specific democracy. So I think the issue of xenophobia in South Africa is a threat to our democracy. So the first question I have is, who is responsible for the latest spread of xenophobic violence or so like many newspapers have put it, anti-foreigner sentiments in South Africa? So before I answer the question, I want to go into what it means to be a foreigner in South Africa. If you are a white European or even an Asian person, you're not regarded foreigner in South Africa. You are treated as a tourist, and you will get a tourist welcome because the anti-foreigner sentiment that people are writing in the media, who are the ones that is affected mostly by xenophobia in South Africa, is people from specific parts of the African continent. So that's the first thing that I want to do. So there is no anti-foreigner sentiment in South Africa, because if there's anti-foreigner sentiment, then that would be a kind of violence and fear towards every foreigner that is in South Africa. And I do not like the term foreigner. So then let's deal with another concept, xenophobia. Xenophobia means the fear for foreigners. And once again, I think there is not a lot of work that is destabilizing the specific term, xenophobia. I tried especially with my PhD dissertation, to actually show that the violence in the Great Lakes, some people wrote also in terms of xenophobia with a specific violence, the Great Lakes, so it's around the DRC, Rwanda, and Burundi. They wrote about this as a kind of xenophobic violence or economic violence, the same way they're describing it in South Africa. And what I did in my PhD dissertation is to show that it's actually a politics of belonging, and that politics of belonging is part of a dominant narrative, a global dominant narrative. And what is happening, the anti-Syrian or the anti-migration, anti-Middle East migrations into Europe from these war-torn countries that we have seen, is the same type of sentiment or violence that we see in the DRC. So, and the same type of violence that we saw in South Africa, and a kind of Brexit and Trump, all of them have the same part of this global dominant narrative. So the better phrase that I'm proposing scholars or even people in the media to use, especially to describe what is happening currently in South Africa, is to move away from xenophobia or anti-foreigner sentiment, but think of it more of a politics of belonging, where some people belong more than others. So because they are not of that specific area, that they can be pushed out or chased out. They are not from here. So that's the first kind of level of analysis that I want to put out there, is those concepts. So now, since we've dealt with it, now we can return to who is responsible for the latest spat of xenophobic violence in South Africa. There's two parties that is responsible for it, and that is the EFF and the Patriotic Alliance. Leading up to the 2019 elections, national provincial elections, and even the 2021 local government elections, these parties were playing a very dangerous politics. And the PA, especially the Patriotic Alliance, during the 2021 municipal election campaign, have said that they are going to stop this foreigners trading in our communities, etc., etc., if they're in charge of municipal council. That's a very dangerous type of politics that they're playing. The EFF also lately have confronted some shop owners and restaurants in Gauteng to talk about who and the people that was employing. The issue here is that they're politicizing a matter that is supposed to be handled by government and by specific arms of government. So they're not following the right channels to deal the majority of their concerns. So, but once it's politicized, that is where it starts running out of control, as we currently see with the Dula movement. And there is parallels that we can draw from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the Great Lakes experience with what's currently happening in South Africa. When political parties at the local government and a provincial level saw that they are losing support, they started playing the kind of anti-foreigner sentiments, and that got them elected into local government positions and even provincial government positions. The politics at the national level in the DRC is a little bit different, was different during specific periods of time. So it was during elections that we saw this anti-Banyamulenge and Banyarwanda sentiments taking place in the DRC. And that led to unspeakable violence in the DRC, and it escalated into a specific number of wars. And that specific area in the Great Lakes have not been stabilized since the 1960s. So constantly, year in and year out, people are experiencing violence. And it's because this matter was politicized. So that's the real danger. The moment it's politicized, it's out of control, and parties then constantly have to re-invoke the kind of the person who belongs and who doesn't belong, and who needs to go and who has the right to vote, all those things. We are treading on a slippery slope in that specific sense. And which leads me to the second question, and that is, what would be the long-term consequences? The long-term consequences would be a stronger politics of belonging that is taking place, where a certain group of people needs to leave South Africa, but it will fragment other groups in South Africa also. So, for example, who in South Africa then, after, let's say, our African brothers and sisters are chased out of this particular country, what will happen? The long-term consequences is that we're going to turn on each other, and then we're going to ask the same questions, is that who doesn't belong in the Eastern Cape, who doesn't belong in KwaZulu-Natal, who doesn't belong in in the Free State, so you cannot vote here, you need to go vote at your specific homeland. And what is happening is that we will slowly but surely return to a type of apartheid politics. So that's the long-term consequences that I see with this specific thing. So we have to do something about it. And if we don't do something about it, then we are going to be, I think within the next decade, we're going to be in a very tricky situation. And we'll have a strong sense of politics of belonging that is taking place in South Africa. So that is why I, during my PhD dissertation, made this specific argument in terms of politics of belonging. It starts off as anti-foreigner sentiments or economic violence, but later became really a politics of belonging. And that politics of belonging is always violent. And many people have lost their lives. So, and I don't think that any one of us in South Africa or even this continent can benefit from yet another conflict. So please, this is my appeal to South Africans and political parties. Please do not engage in this particular type of violence that is currently taking place. And if you have a concern if it's what's suspected drug dealing or whatever concern you have, there is a government, a functioning government at this particular point that can deal with it. So please, and a functional court system, judiciary that can deal with this issue. Use the proper channels to deal with your specific concerns, but don't take the law and whatever in your own hands, because that is going to be the biggest threat to our democracy. So that is what's on my heart, and I hope that you will join in the conversation and give me your insights on this particular matter. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you for supporting the channel. I truly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And until we see each other again, thank you very much. Bye-bye.